So today we will be talking about, we will be looking at an example of Redux Persist. In the last video, we talked about the use of Redux Persist and how we can use Redux Persist to maintain the present state of our application inside the local storage. So today we will be working on an example. In the last video, we also talked about the blacklist and whitelist. So I'm inside my store and I'm inside the store.js file. So let us start coding. So here I'm going to import the configure store from the Redux.js toolkit. I will import the storage from the Redux Persist library storage. I will also import the combined reducers from Redux. I will import persisted reducer from Redux Persist. I will import thunk from Redux thunk. And next we are going to import the counter reducer from our component that we will create. So this is inside the components and it is named counter slice. We will be writing the code inside counter slice. So now we are going to create our const reducers and we are going to use combined reducers. We will pass the argument of counter and counter is assigned to counter reducer that we have exported from our counter slice.js. Now we are going to add the persist config. We have also seen this in the previous video. So there will be a key. This key is assigned to root and we are going to use the storage. So the second argument is storage. Next we are going to add the const persisted reducer. Persisted reducer. This will use the persist reducer and we will have the argument of persist config and reducers that we have created above. Now we will add our store. So const store, this will use the configure store and we are going to have a reducer assigned to persisted reducer. The dev tools is assigned to process dot env dot node underscore env. We have talked about environment variables in one of our videos in detail. You can check that out. And this is assigned to production. The middleware is assigned to thunk. And we will export default our store. So this is all about store.js. We will save this file. And next inside the components I have created two files. One is counter.js and the other is counterslice.js. So first let us go ahead and write code inside our counterslice.js. Now we will be writing code for our counterslice.js. This is inside the components folder. So let us go ahead and write the code inside it. So I'm going to import the create slice from Redux.js toolkit. Create slice is a function that accepts an initial state, an object of reducer function, and a slice name, and automatically generates action creator and action types that correspond to the reducer and states. Now we are going to export const counter slice. This will use the create slice function, and then inside that we will pass the few arguments, that is the name. This name is assigned to counter the initial state, that is whenever we render the component, what is the value that we are going to display in the beginning, that is 0. Next we will have reducers. Reducers will have, we are having 3 reducers. First one is increment. This takes state, and here we will have state dot value plus 1. So what is the work of this reducer is to increment the value of the state. Redux toolkit allows us to write mutating logic in reducers. It doesn't actually mutate the state because it uses the imers library, which detects changes to a draft state and produces a brand new immutable state. We have talked about this, that there is new state is created and it is immutable. So after increment we will have decrement. Decrement will also take state and it will return the copy of the state with a value of -1 from the original state. After decrement, we are going to add another reducer. This reducer is named increment by amount. Increment by amount. So this is going to take state and action as the argument, and it will return state dot value, and it will add the value according to action dot payload. That is, if I want to add 3 things to my cart or 4 things to my cart, so I will add that inside my action and then it will increment according to that. Increment and decrement will always add or subtract 1. So we will not do that with increment in by amount. We will add a direct amount. Now we will add a function, that is export const, and we will export all our reducers, increment, decrement and increment by amount, and we will all assign it to counter slice dot reduce dot action. Actions. Now we will add a function increment async, that is for asynchronous actions. We have already talked about asynchronous actions, so we will be working on that. So export const increment async, which is the short of asynchronous. Here we are giving amount as an argument, and using dispatch we will be adding that much amount. So here I'm going to add set timeout, and inside set timeout we are going to add the dispatch which takes increment by amount, and inside that we will pass amount as an argument. So whatever is the amount, that much amount will be incremented, and the interval will be 1000. This function is called a thunk and it allows to perform async logic. We have already discussed that. It will call the thunk with dispatch function as the first argument, and the asynchronous code can then be executed and the another actions can be dispatched. Now we will add our selector. We have talked about selector also. A selector is the inline where they are used instead of in the slice file. So it allows us to select a value from the state. We have a detailed video on selectors. So let us create our selector, that is export const select count. This will take state and it will return state dot counter dot value. Lastly, we will export default counter slice dot reducer. Now we have a counter component. So we will write the counter component. I'm inside my components and I have this counter.js file. So let's go ahead and write code for that. So inside counter.js, I'm going to import React from React, and I'm also going to import use state hook. Next, I am going to import use selector and use dispatch. Use selector and use dispatch. From React Redux, I will import all our reducers. So decrement from counter slice, increment by amount, and increment async. Last one is select count. So whatever we had inside our counter slice, we have added all that. So increment async and increment by amount. Okay. After this, we are going to add export function counter. This is a functional component. Here we will create a const count. This uses the use selector hook. Use selector has the argument of select count. Next we will add the dispatch. So dispatch is assigned to use dispatch and the argument is empty. Next we will have use state. So use state will take increment amount, and then set increment amount. And it will take use state. Here we are giving the argument of 2. Now we will add the return statement. Insert inside the return, I will have a div tag. Inside the div, we will have a button. This button has an on click. This on click is assigned to an arrow function which takes dispatch and inside dispatch we have increment. So the button is going to increment the value. And the button will have a plus sign, or you can write increment also. So this is dispatch. Next, let us wrap it inside a div. Okay, so we will have two different buttons. So I will add one div here and I will open another div. So I will have the button next here. So this button is having an on click. This on click is also an arrow function, and here we are going to dispatch decrement. And decrement, and it will have a minus sign. Now after this div we will have an input tag. So this input tag has a value of increment amount and it has an on change. This on change will take an event E and it is going to use the set increment amount where it will target the value. So E dot target dot value. And we will have a button right after this input tag. So whatever amount you insert into the input field, and then you will have a button which will say add amount or something like that. So button will have an on click and the on click will use the dispatch again, and inside dispatch we will have increment by amount. Here we will pass argument of number and inside that increment amount. Or 0. So here we are using an or and this will say add amount. Similarly, we will have another button for adding async. So let us just copy this and we will just change a little bit of it. So this button will have this increment async and it will take number and then increment amount and same. And here also we will have async. Now we are going to export default. Okay, we have already exported that. Now into my app.js, I will add this component. So counter, and here also I will edit it as counter. Now I will go to my index.js, and here we are going to change a little bit of code. So here I'm going to add let persister, and I'm going to use persist store, and I will pass store as an argument. Next, provider is assigned to store. The persist gate will have two arguments. One is loading, this is null, and another is persister, which is assigned to our persister. We will also import the store. So import store from store.js. Now we will save all these files and we will just have a look at the output. So here with our buttons, we will also add a span. This span will display our count. So whatever is the count, it will be displayed there. So now if we save all our files, then we should get, okay, so we are getting this type of an output, but we want it to be at the initial state. We do not have any console or log statement, so we'll just close that. Actually, I added that amount, so it will start from 0 initially, and if we reload it, then we have had the, in the use state we gave the argument 2, so this is the amount 2, and if we press add amount, then we will have 2 as the incremented, it is incremented to 2. Now if we add it to 3 and we press on add async, so nothing happened. Okay, so you can see that it eventually went up to 8. Now if I reload my browser, you will see that this state is being stored. It is not being updated to 0 as it happened in the last. So this is the use of Redux Persist. And where can we use Redux Persist in real life applications? So that is inside our shopping carts or something where I have saved something and I do not want it to get updated if I log out or leave my browser for some time, or if I'm logged in into my application, I do not want myself to be logged out. So there I will be using Redux Persist. Now let us go to our local storage, and we have some of our information stored inside our local storage. So this is where we are going to look for the applications storage and what is there inside. So we have the root persist and we have all this stored here. So that's it for today's video. Do like and subscribe to our channel and keep watching our videos to learn React JS for beginners. See you in the next video.